The chandelier-lit ballroom shimmered with laughter and champagne, but in the far corner, beneath a spray of white roses, a man in a wheelchair sat as if he were invisible. His tailored suit was flawless, his hair neatly combed, yet the guests glided past him with polite smiles that never lingered. On the happiest wedding day of the season, a disabled millionaire was ignored, dismissed as background decor, until one small, unexpected gesture from a maid's daughter began to crack the walls around every hardened heart in the room. Before this story unfolds any further, pause for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of compassion that can change lives, please like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still waiting to be touched. His name was Matthew Collins, and once, his presence commanded rooms far larger than this ballroom. Years ago, he had built a logistics empire from nothing, sleeping in his office, eating cold meals, trusting numbers more than people. Then a winter highway accident shattered his spine and fractured his confidence. The recovery was long and humiliating. Boardrooms that once welcomed him with applause replaced his seat with someone younger, louder, and uninjured. Matthew sold his shares quietly, kept his wealth, and retreated from public life. Invitations stopped coming, except from those who remembered his donations more than his humanity. The wedding today belonged to a distant business associate's son, a courtesy invite sent out of obligation rather than affection. Matthew attended anyway, determined not to let the world decide his value. The venue sat on the edge of a lake in Vermont, the kind of place magazines loved to photograph. Guests admired the view, the food, the flawless planning, but no one admired Matthew. People assumed his chair defined him. They spoke over him, around him, or not at all. He noticed the way eyes slid away, how conversations died when he rolled closer. He told himself he was used to it, yet each dismissal pressed against him like another unseen weight. He watched the newlyweds dance and wondered how many people in the room would still notice them if something terrible ever happened. As the evening wore on, Matthew's attention drifted away from the guests and toward the staff. He had always noticed workers, the invisible machinery that kept luxury running. Among them was a maid named Ruth Anderson, a woman with tired eyes and careful hands who moved with quiet urgency. She wiped spills, smoothed tablecloths, and adjusted centerpieces with a pride that suggested this job mattered deeply to her. Trailing behind her, helping when she could, was her young daughter, Grace, no more than 9 years old, wearing a simple blue dress that had clearly been washed and pressed with love. Grace was not invisible in the way her mother had learned to be. She watched everything. She noticed the way guests laughed loudly at certain tables and the way one man sat alone by the roses. While her mother worked, Grace studied Matthew with open curiosity, not pity. She saw his still legs but also his steady hands, the sadness he tried to hide behind a calm expression. Something about him felt lonely in a way she recognized. Grace had grown up understanding absence. Her father had passed away when she was small, and her mother worked double shifts to keep their tiny apartment warm. Weddings, with their abundance and joy, always made Grace think about what people needed most when the music stopped. As the night deepened, she slipped away from her mother's side, holding something small and folded in her hand. Without ceremony or fear, Grace approached Matthew. She did not see a man to avoid or a chair to step around. She saw someone who looked forgotten. She gently placed a paper napkin on his lap, unfolded to reveal a crayon drawing of a lake, a sun, and 2 stick figures standing side by side. One figure sat in a chair, smiling just as brightly as the other. Grace pointed to the picture, then to him, then to herself, offering a soft smile that carried no expectation of return. The gesture was simple, but it struck Matthew harder than any boardroom betrayal. In that moment, the noise of the ballroom faded. The years of being overlooked, the pitying glances, the polite distance, all loosened their grip. He felt seen not as broken or burdensome, but as present. His eyes stung as he held the drawing, careful not to crease it. For the first time that evening, he smiled openly. What Grace did not know was that her quiet act was noticed. A few guests glanced over, puzzled by the stillness around Matthew. They saw the child, the drawing, and the man's reaction. Curiosity replaced indifference. A woman named Catherine, a family friend of the bride, leaned closer and asked Ruth who the man was. Ruth, embarrassed and protective, explained that he was a guest and nothing more. But whispers traveled quickly in rooms like this. Someone recognized Matthew's name. Another remembered his company. Suddenly, people saw him not as an inconvenience but as someone worth acknowledging. Yet Matthew did not miss the irony. The room's interest returned only after a child reminded them of his humanity. He accepted the attention politely, but his focus remained on Grace and Ruth, now nervously trying to pull her daughter back to work. As dessert was served, Matthew made a decision that surprised even himself. He asked the wedding coordinator to bring Ruth and Grace to him. Ruth approached hesitantly, expecting reprimand. Instead, Matthew thanked her for raising a daughter who could see what others ignored. He asked about their lives, their struggles, their hopes. Ruth spoke carefully, and used to being asked questions that mattered. Matthew listened in a way that made time slow. He learned about Ruth's long hours, her dreams of sending Grace to a good school, her fear of medical bills she could never afford. He recognized the weight of quiet endurance, the kind that never makes headlines. By the end of the night, Matthew had arranged something extraordinary, not as charity, but as recognition. He offered to fund Grace's education fully, to cover Ruth's healthcare costs, and to invest in a small cleaning business Ruth had always dreamed of starting. The following weeks turned whispers into headlines. News outlets picked up the story of the reclusive millionaire and the maid's daughter whose kindness sparked a transformation. But the real change happened away from cameras. Matthew found purpose again, mentoring young entrepreneurs with disabilities, funding programs that taught compassion alongside ambition. Ruth's business grew steadily, and Grace thrived in school, carrying her crayons with pride. Years later, Matthew attended another wedding, this time not as an ignored guest but as a man at peace. Grace, now a confident teenager, stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm. He still carried the drawing in his wallet, worn but treasured, a reminder of the night a child chose kindness over caution. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories of compassion alive. And before we end, please comment the word kindness below if you believe small gestures can change the world. Matthew often said that his wealth never saved him, but a child's simple act did. In a room full of celebration and noise, it was a quiet heart that changed everything.